After I spent an hour with Alan, I understood those 7 words uttered 15 months ago. I walked away saying I really liked him. It has been my pleasure to introduce Alan Bleyer through his own bio, through my eyes and through the eyes of many who know him. When I asked him what one thing he would change to make the world better, he gave me a clue about his topic today. He said, "It's not something we can do alone. We have to do it together." Together, we will now benefit from his meaningful and powerful message. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bernett, for those very, very kind introductory remarks. And welcome to the 16th annual Heart to Heart Akron Speaks Out for Values breakfast. As noted in the publicity, the theme of my talk is using your moral compass to navigate the world. Let me take you back to the year 1938. Storm clouds are forming over Europe, entering the darkest period of the 20th century. Mankind's moral compass was beginning to freeze as the Nazi war machine was moving across the European continent, one country after another falling to tyranny. On March the 14th, the German army crossed over the Austrian frontier and took over Austria, a German-speaking country. The transfer of leadership to the Nazi Party occurs as Austrians cheer their German-speaking brethren who are marching through the streets of Vienna. A family, the Baumgarten family, who live in the 2nd district of downtown Vienna overlooking the 1904 World's Fair Ferris wheel, are arrested. My grandparents and my mother. Each day, they urge the police in jail to allow them to leave. Day 1, 2, 3. And they share with the police this passport that allows them to leave Vienna and escape the onslaught of the Nazis. It is only during the 5th day that a friend of the family comes forward and takes it on his own to advocate for the family's departure. And after being very convincing but taking an extraordinary risk that certainly could have led to his own imprisonment and perhaps to his death, he is able to free the family. It is this act of kindness that I consider godliness that led to their freedom, that allowed them to leave, is what my talk with you this morning is all about. And that theme is kindness. Kindness is the moral compass that one uses across boundaries of society, cultures, religions, geographies, and generations. It is one concept that is common to all of us. So let me share with you a few definitions of what kindness is all about. From the Old Testament, it says, "You shall know God because God is kind, full of loving kindness." And in Hebrew, the word is chesed. It refers to loving kindness or mercy. But it isn't in reference exclusively between God and man. It really is in reference to how we treat each other. Actions of kindness from one person to the second to the third. That's what the Old Testament is communicating to each and every single one of us. It requires us to adopt actions involving social justice, morality, righteousness, and compassion to each other. We, in effect, are taking on the yoke of the kingdom of heaven when we are carrying out God's mandate of showing acts of loving kindness to each other day in and day out. It involves really two steps. The first is the action of giving assistance to others in need, and the second is to sublimate our own needs for others. Let me give you a few words that I think everyone can agree don't represent kindness. Self-centeredness, indifference, hard-heartedness, and harshness. And as a corollary, words that represent kindness. Sympathy, mercy, empathy, and understanding. I believe the best way of describing these words is to share with you stories that represent what I've just described. So allow me to go back to my family's journey. They left Vienna, boarded a train to Amsterdam, used the passport that I just shared with you, boarded a ship, and 1 month later, December of 1938, arrived in Panama. You may ask why Panama? Because at that time, there were quotas around the world limiting the number of immigrants that could be received on a country-by-country basis, and Panama was one of the few countries that still had not met its quota. So therefore, the family arrived in Panama for several months and immediately applied for visas to the United States. Their objective was coming to America. America, one of the greatest concepts of the last 2,000 years. Freedom, democracy. When they arrived, the very first thing they did in a foreign country here, didn't know the language, the culture, the customs, the way of doing business. They immediately adopted what America's all about. Learning history, learning how to speak the language, and becoming a citizen of the United States.